Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and today we're playing Guild Wars 2. We'll be playing each class for a bit, doing some quests, and taking on some jumping puzzles, and then asking the only video game review question that really matters. Guild Wars 2. Will it cure my depression? Right, let's go. Guild Wars 2 doesn't actually require you to join a guild or get involved in a war, so right from the get-go it's false advertising. It is, however, the second game, so the title is 1/3 accurate. Guild Wars 2 was originally designed as a test of how many lines Nolan North can deliver before we get sick of hearing his voice everywhere. And it failed, because Nolan North has a beautiful voice, and I personally loved journeying through Tyria with Nathan Drake. If you're tight on money, you can download the game and play for free, although you won't be allowed to talk or travel to some places because the game doesn't want you poor people pouring up the nice new parts with all your poor people opinions. Come back when you've got money and it'll think about letting you talk. Once you do decide to pay, it's a one-time payment, none of that subscription rubbish. So, if you buy it, use it, and then forget about it for 6 months, it'll still be there, waiting for you. Happy and eager to get back together, forgiving you for ignoring it all this time, playing other games behind its back. Guild Wars 2 deserves so much better than you. The main game is pretty big, but it's also pretty brain-dead easy. The areas are expansive, but the enemies are all super duper simple to kill. It's kind of like playing paintball inside an empty warehouse against a bunch of 10-year-olds. Yes, it ends up looking very pretty and it's fun for a while, but eventually you're going to need something more challenging. Both expansions address this, however, by swapping the warehouse for a jungle and the 10-year-olds for a coked-up special forces team whose one last mission is simply ruin your day. When you make your character, you'll be asked to choose a backstory for them which will affect the story slightly, or so I've been told, because I've always been a middle-class circus boy on each of my 8 playthroughs because I've been taught to stick to what I know and I like to make my gaming experiences as close to real life as possible. Standard game controls, run, jump, swim, but one amazing part of the game is the jumping puzzles. Because apparently one entire department weren't told they were making an MMORPG and just started working really hard on what they assumed would be the next Super Mario game. Several months of development later, I guess they just said fuck it and shoved in what they did make into the game and said, look, jumping puzzles, and God bless them for this. Because these are some of the best parts of the game. They're fun, they're challenging, they're interesting. No, fuck. These are the worst things ever. Jumping puzzles suck. The maps themselves use something known as level scaling, which I personally think is one of the worst mechanics ever. Put simply, it scales you down to any area, so you're never too powerful. It's designed to allow you to group up with your friends, but all it really does is make sure you absolutely never ever feel like you're getting any stronger. Because it never levels the enemies down to you, and only you to them, they can still kick your ass. And you get very slightly better as the months go on. It's a boring mechanic, and needs to be removed from all games. But Strife, I hear you cry. It allows me and my friends to group up and play the same content together on a fair and level playing field. Well, good for you for having friends. But if you're the kind of person who doesn't have any friends, which given my YouTube demographic is highly likely, this mechanic just serves to make us all feel even lonelier. So I hope you feel good about yourself now, friend-having multiplayer player. Combat in the game consists of locking on to an enemy with tab, or you can go to the options menu and switch it to action camera, which is clearly the superior choice here. Then, just smash your face against the keyboard. Every single Guild Wars 2 player I've ever met has told me that the combat is actually nuanced and specific and very subtle at higher levels, and every single one of them is wrong. Lock on, smash keyboard, win. Repeat until endgame. The different classes are an absolutely amazing feat of design, because never before have I read classes that sound so different and yet all play absolutely the same. No matter which class you choose, your combat experience will be exactly the same as mine. Oh, but Strife, I hear you cry. How can you claim a warrior and an elementalist are the same? They have different attacks. Do they both use a two-handed sword? Yes. Do they both cycle through 5 attacks? Yes. They are the same class. Oh, but Strife, I hear you cry, again, but louder and angrier this time. How dare you accuse Guild Wars 2 of having similar classes when they're so gosh darn deep? You just need more time in the game. Look, I've put 400 hours into it so far for this review, and if I've not been forced to feel a class difference, maybe it's the game's fault and not mine. I've played every class in the interest of fairness, and once or twice I forgot what class I was playing, so I just said screw it, ran into combat and mashed my keyboard, and wouldn't you know it, I won every time. There is a weapon swapping system, apparently, where you can wield 2 different weapons and switch between them, which is useful for whenever you find yourself thinking, gosh, I wish I was fighting with a slightly worse weapon, and then boom, wish granted, you can swap to your crap weapon. I don't understand weapon swapping systems in games where your main weapon doesn't run out of ammo. I understand switching from your rifle to a pistol is faster than reloading in a shooting game, but never have I gone, this two-handed sword seems to be working well. Better pull out the old dagger and give it a few stabs to make sure it still works. Every map you play through has a huge amount of things to do and places to see and stuff to collect. It felt like I was playing a Ubisoft game, there were so many collectibles. Talk to this person to unlock the map, then climb up here and hear the eagle cry and jump off into the cart of hay. It was around this moment I realised why I never felt truly connected to Guild Wars 2. It's 3 different games in my mind. It's a platform puzzler similar to Mario, it's an open world collectathon similar to Assassin's Creed, and it's a casual MMO by ArenaNet. It's not bad at any of these, but it kind of feels like a pizza with every topping. There's a lot going on, and I'm never quite sure if I like it. It's got one of the most vocal fan bases of all time, and absolutely any critique will be met with swift retribution, so I'm looking forward to that happening. Again. But I must stand by my convictions and state I feel the combat is crap. It feels like I'm fighting with a balloon. My magic spells may as well be party poppers for all the impact they have, and being part of a large Zerg rush of players at the world boss events feels like being an ant inside a moving mass of other ants, and eventually the boss just gives up out of pity. I decided to explore the PvP for a bit, and from my brief adventure to the Isle of Player vs Player, I've discovered the PvP in Guild Wars 2 is mostly standing around and looking shiny. People can fight each other, and the game does actually level everyone up to the same level, so it's fair, which is great because you can't blame lag or gear. So when you die, it really does drive home just how crap you are at this game. The best PvP players aren't even the ones you find in the PvP games. They're the ones stood in the lobby, competing to see who can have the most particle bloom effects equipped at once. I think there exists a moment in Guild Wars 2 where, if you're good enough at PvP, you transcend being a player and become an actual light source within the game. The plot is driven forward by something known as the living story, which are a series of small episodic installments, so players are constantly given something to do. It's a good idea in general, but it's also a lot like a comic book series coming out each week, and if you try to join the series several years in, you're forced to either go back and read hundreds upon hundreds of pages of lore, or just walk up to the latest group and be teased for not knowing why What's-Her-Face killed Who's-It, and why you should care about this thing because of that thing that happened. Guild Wars 2 is one of those games that claims to have a truly inviting community, and that is absolutely true, providing you don't criticise any part of it, ever. I felt incredibly welcome for the first few weeks I played, until I expressed concerns with the combat system, whereupon they wheeled out the guillotine and started chanting heretic. All in all, Guild Wars 2 is a fantastically built, beautiful platform puzzle game with a casual MMORPG tagged on the side. I'm told there's a deep combat system, and if I give it a few thousand hours I'll come to appreciate it, but I suppose the shallow end of a swimming pool is also considered deep if you're 5 years old. I can't fault how great the value for money here is. The devs clearly love the game, and it's going to remain around for many years to come. Playing Guild Wars 2 kept me occupied for about 6 months. If I had to give it 3 awards, they'd be floaty combat, fanatical fanbase, and casual friendly. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got a game you think can cure your depression, leave it in the comments below and I'll try to get round to reviewing it. Cheers for your time and have a great day.